Welcome back to Vintage HLC Show and Tell. Today we're looking at the Coronet shape by Laughlin. This is a rim shape with embossed panels and floral verge. So we'll look at the embossing first of all. This goes all the way around all these panels, and there's your floral ring that's embossed along the verge. This shape was developed in late 1934 and was introduced in 1935. We'll look at the marking next. There's only one marking used on Coronet. It has the crown up top, Coronet spelled out, the Laughlin logo, and then USA underneath. Unfortunately, none of these markings have date codes. So dating it can be rather difficult, though it was probably discontinued sometime in the early 1940s. There were 6 different types of decorations applied to Coronet. Decals, underglaze prints, solid colors, gold stamps, platinum stamps, and hand-painted work. So we'll start with the decals. This is windblown poppy. It was also used on oven serve. It can be found on Virginia rose and marigold and nautilus eggshell. But here it is on Coronet. It is CO 527, and it has gold trim. There's also a version that it was used on Coronet without gold trim. Then we have this pastel rose decoration. This originates on the jade shape, and it's J6. So I should say it's J6 if it's jade clair de lune, but if it's jade vellum, then it's J106. But here on Coronet, it's CO 543. You can also find this on Virginia rose, a couple other shapes as well. And this one has platinum trim. By the way, platters, we've got the 15-inch platter, the 13-inch platter, and the 11-inch platter. This decal treatment we see on the marigold shape more often than Coronet. It's M211. It's also used on embossed oven serve. On Coronet it is CO 553, and it has, I believe that's gold trim. Kind of hard to make that one out because it's so worn. Another treatment that was developed for jade, Spanish wall or Spanish door, platinum trim, Coronet. Cottage decals, Coronet creamer, and the Coronet sugar, the little sprig on top. June rose decal on a Coronet casserole. Look at the side. Rather nice piece, the casserole, rather large architectural type shape. This treatment should be familiar to Virginia rose collectors. VR128, though when it appears on Coronet it's CO 591. And then we have this one. This decal also appears on theme eggshell TH6. It also appears on swing eggshell, several other shapes, but here it is CO 532. Now, solid colors. Technically there are 3 solid colors if you want to consider ivory a solid color, but usually it's just 2 if you're talking about the melon yellow glaze. This was developed for embossed oven serve, which was also used in Wells art glazes. It was used on the Empress teapot and apple tree bowls, but it's not very common on Coronet. And here's our 11 and 5/8 inch platter in this melon yellow glaze, teacup and saucer in melon yellow. Look at the marking. And for comparison, here's one embossed oven serve in melon yellow. So it is the same glaze. Now the other one is green, which we've already looked at this. And it was sold as sea green. A very transparent glaze. And I'd assume it's meant to be that way so that all this embossing shows up. This glaze is unique to Coronet. It wasn't used anywhere else. The Knoll and Trellis and Old Roman green glaze is not the same as this one. What was used on Marigold and Fiesta, it's not the same. Only used on Coronet, and it's rather difficult to find. Much more difficult to find than the yellow. Oh, when talking about decals, I passed over this. This treatment with all these little scattered roses or flowers. You'll find that on Georgian eggshell more often than you will on Coronet. Then we have gold stamps, 13-inch platter, or actual dimensions are 13.5. You see these gold stamps, they don't sort of fit very well on Coronet. They're sort of out of alignment with that embossing. There are only a couple gold stamp treatments on Coronet, but platinum stamps, there's quite a few. We see the platinum stamp over the center of the floral embossing, and these little scattered stamps along the edge. The treatment number is CO559. And another platinum stamp makes use of the full embossing. We also see it on the finial, on the handles. And it has platinum trim. There's also a version where it has red trim, but it uses the same gold stamps on the embossing. Under glaze treatments, there are 2 patterns in 2 different colors, so there's 4 total. So there's the blue swan, there's also the pink swan. This is the smaller version. There's no swans on this, but it's part of the same series. So underglaze prints, and it doesn't matter if it's Coronet or, let's say, blue willow, pink willow, or fantasy, or some of the others. Usually the back stamp, let's look at the creamer, will be in blue. So it's our regular Coronet back stamp, which ordinarily would be a greenish color. But in underglaze prints, it's going to be blue. The other pattern is a floral center. So you will find that in blue and pink as well. And then finally, the hand-painted work. So this is polychrome. 4 colors, pink, green, yellow, and blue. You also see this same configuration being used on embossed oven serve. But here we see it on Coronet. And not surprising to see it on Coronet, considering embossed oven serve was released a year prior to this being made. But there are 5 treatments in total. So you have this one, the polychrome, and then you have the individual colors. So we see the pink being used by itself. And you will also find, of course, the blue, the green, and the yellow, just like this. And we have a polychrome casserole in the back. They even did the handles and finials with some hand-painted work. So a couple of things about Coronet. There's no teapot in Coronet, which is very unfortunate. This is part of that group like Orleans and Ravenna and Georgian Ivory, Virginia Rose and Marigold, and Nautilus Ivory that didn't have a teapot in that early 1930s range. It does have a rim soup and a coupe soup, C-O-U-P-E. Coupe refers to anything that doesn't have a rim. Probably one of the last shapes to have both. We see rim soups and coupe soups in Virginia Rose. We see it in, let's see, Marigold, Nolan Trellis. But by the time you get to Coronet, this is pretty much the last time you have both. Lines that follow, they're going to have one or the other. There's also a lug soup in Coronet. Another one over here with an unusual pink decal and pink trim and platinum stamps. See the embossing low on the body. This lug soup was picked up and used with Virginia Rose. So we see the Virginia Rose type stamps going on this Coronet piece. So this was a pickup piece. And after Coronet was discontinued, they start using Nautilus. So we see those Virginia Rose stamps on the inside. And this is why I say Coronet was discontinued in the early 1940s, because this piece is dated 48. So sometime prior to 1948, Coronet is probably discontinued, and we see the Nautilus lug soup take the place of the Coronet version. Another thing about Coronet, this is the first shape that didn't have a jug. If you look at shapes that came before it, like, let's say, Virginia Rose, there were 2 jugs. In Century Jade and Wells, there were 2 jugs. Nolan Trellis had 5 jugs, and if you go even further back, like to the fancy embossed shapes of Hudson and Angelus, then you get 7 jugs. But that all comes to an end with Coronet. There's none. Now there are a few lines that follow that have jugs, namely Fiesta and Harlequin. But Coronet's the first not to have any, and I can't count Ravenna and Old Roman because those were such limited assortments to begin with. They really don't count. So I think that's going to be it for Coronet. This is a really fun shape to collect, not easy to find. One last thing about these platters. Even though Coronet's rather difficult to find, the platters are not. They are rather common, all 3 sizes. So that's going to be it for now.